All right, thank you so much for staying with us. Let's still talk about the Naira scarcity, which of course is causing a lot of hardship for Nigerians in tandem with the issue of the fuel scarcity in the country. And there have been the issues of fuel attendants not wanting to give, the buyers or the customers the opportunity to use POS to pay for the fuel that they purchase. All of these issues have been causing more hardship for Nigerians, but we would be focusing more on the Naira scarcity issue right here with Matthew Olukwe, public affairs analyst, who is still with us in the studio. Thank you for staying with us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we know that not just the fact that the Naira scarcity is still one big issue that hasn't been resolved. People are also having to queue for fuel, and not just having to queue for fuel, you do not even have the cash to pay for the fuel. And then when you give this fuel attendants your card to pay for the fuel that you've purchased, they tell you that it's either they tell you their POS isn't working, or they try to get the POS of another person whom you would have to pay extra. You know, POS operators are now kings. They are the ones charging exorbitant fees for you to get cash. And so we know that there has been a law out there, or a sanction out there, that any filling station that doesn't accept POS payment would be sanctioned. But what do you make of all of this development?
I think the problem is the e-payment system is overwhelmed. So before the filling stations started rejecting e-payment platforms, it's because of the challenge associated with it. Because personally, I have my own fair experience. There's an instance where I tried to make a transaction of about 20,000. It declined. I tried it like twice. It didn't go through. I have to plead with the person that he can commence the job, because he's a regular customer, that over the night I will try to repeat it. I woke up around 4 a.m. to repeat it. It declined and they debited me. But as God will have it, it reversed. I didn't try it again. I met the person the following day. The person said I should try it again. In his presence, I tried it, it declined, I was debited. Instantly, it was reversed. I would say I was lucky, because otherwise, it would have mounted me going to the rigor of into the bank to fill form and waiting for maybe 5 days or 7 working days before it will be reversed. So I asked the person to give me another bank account. He gave me, I did it, and it went through. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, the reason the filling stations are turning down e-payment is because of the challenge they are facing. So I think there is a need for a holistic improvement on the infrastructure that delivers e-payment. Otherwise, the surge is why we are seeing this level of network glitch. And nobody will want a situation where you're expected to be paid. The money is not getting to you, and perhaps you need it to do one or two other things. And if it continues like that, it will get a situation where almost everyone will start rejecting e-payment. And you discover that if you want to make e-payment, you'll be praying. I hope it goes through. You understand?
And one of the things the CBN wanted to encourage by, starting this policy in the first place is e-transactions.
E-transaction is not bad, but I think we need to improve on all the infrastructure that delivers it. Otherwise, I think the surge is making it overwhelmed.
But there are some, reactions from people, especially from some quarters, that this thing was premeditated, so that they do not want a situation where people will be able to access their platform, thereby reduce the level of transaction and also reduce the level of physical cash in the hands of people. Don't you think so?
I don't think that is true, because nobody would deliberately want to create a chaotic atmosphere. What we are seeing is a recipe for crisis. That's why personally I'm praying that the case should be resolved as quickly as possible. That's why I'm even calling on the state governments through their respective attorney generals who approached Supreme Court for that order to have a rethink and perhaps discontinue the case, to pave way for the CBN and Mr. President to review this policy. Because once the policy is reviewed, perhaps in line with the advice of the resolution from the State of Council's meeting the other time, the tension will reduce. Because if Nigerians know that in the next 10 days, the old Naira note is still a legal tender going by CBN policy, everybody will feel relaxed. If they know that in the next 1 month, 2 months, is still a legal tender, everybody feel relaxed.
But won't the purpose be defeated? Because the plan was to recoup all of the Naira in circulation before a certain period so that they can, you know, deal or tamper with inflation.
If you watch my statement, you see that I'm not saying 1 year or 6 months. I'm careful with the duration I'm talking about.
But they are also looking at vote buying for elections, and
that is why even as you allow the old Naira note to coexist with the new Naira note, it is quite agreed, according to CBN, that from before this policy, that they have about 3.2 trillion in circulation generally. That after that total amount, you have about 2.7 outside the banking system. That after the first phase of the policy, they were able to recover 1.9 trillion, which represented 75% of the 2.7 trillion, leaving about 900 billion out of banking system. So what I'm trying to say in essence is, if you allow the old Naira note to coexist with the new Naira note, and perhaps you inject part of the old Naira note that have been mopped up, you are not bringing everything back. You monitor the system, you know how much you inject to ease the scarcity. So I'm not saying they should pump in all the old Naira notes that have been mopped up before now.
No, they cannot even do that, because the practice is whenever you mop up old Naira notes, you destroy them. You do not. Where would they even get the old Naira notes from? No.
I don't think it has been destroyed.
Well, according to the CBN governor, they do not even have the old Naira notes, and that's why they are the governor of Kaduna State, Nasir El-Rufai, was talking about the fact that they mopped up about, they're planning to mop up about 2.7 trillion naira from the circulation, but they are printing, or they printed about 300 billion naira new naira notes, and that there's no commensurate, production, or should I say, commensurate move when it comes to balancing that equation.
I don't even think the Kaduna State governor is justified to say what he has said. But personally, I've seen a governor who alleged that a governor was able to withdrew 500 million naira of the new Naira notes. And up to today, he have not told Nigerians or revealed to the security agencies or the anti-graft agencies who is this governor. So what I'm trying to say is, and the issue of the amount of money that is printed by Nigerian Printing and Minting Press, I don't think he quoted the source where he got the information.
But the CBN hasn't denied it.
Because in all the press statements I have seen from the CBN, I have not seen anywhere, even when CBN governor went to the House Committee to defend the position, I don't think I've seen the CBN make categorical statement as to this amount that was printed. And again, even when a section of the media the other time tried to allude that Nigerian Printing and Minting Press don't have the capacity to print or to meet the demand, and they were trying to present it as if that was a statement that came from CBN governor when he presented himself to the Council of State. CBN came out, was it yesterday or day before yesterday, to put the statement that didn't come from the CBN governor. So for me, I don't know where he got that statement.
But for all of this silence, Nigerians are really not sure where we stand, because if you look at the fact that the Supreme Court has issued an order, the IMF has advised the CBN to try to extend the deadline for the mopping up of the old Naira note. The president isn't saying anything about whether they are going by the, of course, we know that the norm should be that the federal government should go by the ruling of the Supreme Court. But we know from past precedents. We've seen cases where this administration hasn't really been open to obeying court orders. But in all of this, we know that elections are about 12 days to come now. Where do you see all of this taking us to? The CBN had said that they're doing this to curb vote buying. They're doing this to curb kidnapping, payment of ransom and all of that. They're doing it to curb inflation. But now the elections are approaching. We're not sure if the old note is still legal tender, if by next, or rather this Wednesday, when the Supreme Court will be sitting, if they would extend the duration of the legal tender of the old Naira note. Where exactly are we in all of this?
First of all, let me say we are not confused. Going by the decision of the Supreme Court, the old Naira note still maintains its legal status.
Despite the fact that the federal government isn't saying
it's
anything.
Irrespective of the decision of the position of federal government and CBN. It is irrespective
Are
of...
you also aware that Malami, the Attorney General of the Federation, also talked about appealing that particular case?
Appeal does not constitute judgment. Because I've
the Supreme Court statement,
I've listened to the ground of appeal. You said what?
The Supreme Court statement isn't a judgment.
Supreme Court
they
statement
just postponed.
No. Supreme Court granted an injunction, and it's a restraining order. It's a judgment. It's a restraining order to maintain status quo. Maintaining status quo and allow and compelling CBN and the federal government to allow the old Naira note to exist as legal tender. I'm just saying that it's not a judgment. It's a judgment. It's no. It's a judgment. It's an order of the court. Even legal luminaries will tell you that as it is right now, what they're saying is let the status quo stay. No. But let us get it wrong. Until they sit Wednesday. They seek an injunction. They seek an injunction, a restraining order, and the order was given. If you watch the statement that came from Malami, the Attorney General of the Federation, he said the federal government will obey the order. Now, when he was talking about appealing the order, he said, one, that he feels, in his continued opinion, that CBN is an indispensable party in this circumstance. And as an indispensable party, that the people that took the matter to court ought to join CBN as a party. No. I'm coming. That if they were not joined as a party, that he feel that those people that brought the case to court lack the power to invoke the jurisdiction of the court to make that, to institute that case. And again, it's challenging Supreme Court that they should determine whether they had jurisdiction to entertain that case. So all this relief is seeking, and those relief does not constitute a judgment. But as we speak, there's a restraining order from Supreme Court that says CBN and federal government don't use 10th of February as deadline to terminate the use of old Naira notes. So is a restraining order a judgment? Is a judgment. Okay. Now, having said that, I have been unequivocal about what should be done, because I feel if there's an order that compels federal government and CBN to in making any further review, that until that order is vacated, if they do anything, it will be tantamount to disobeying court order. And I took note of what you said, that federal government before now had history of violating court orders. But this one is spectacular. It's strange, because I have a capacity of creating an anarchy. That is why federal government have to be careful, and I think that is why they are being careful. Because you have a situation where if federal government decides to disobey, you will see a good number of Nigerians saying federal government has said the case is not binding and they are not abiding by it. They will start using the old Naira note. You see, you find a section of Nigerians. No, I'm making an instance. You will find a section of Nigerians that will say Supreme Court are giving judgment and it's final, and they will be rejecting it. Sorry, they will be accepting it, and some people will try to obey the federal government, so will try to obey the Supreme Court. So federal government has to be careful. It's not just like any other case where they will rush to start choosing and picking which order to obey. So they are bound to obey this in order to maintain sanity. As it stands now, what should Nigerians be looking forward to? Who should Nigerians be listening to? Who should Nigerians be taking directives from? Is it from the federal government or from the Supreme Court? we are in a constitutional democracy.
Yes.
And the court has spoken. And the federal government have been honorable enough to say we are abiding by the ruling of the Supreme Court, even as we will to appeal it. Now, it is very clear. Until 15th of this month, Naira note, according to that restraining order, is still maintains its legal status, tender status. So Nigerians should go by what the Supreme Court.
So how do you see all of this affecting the elections? You know, some people have been, we know that there was a meeting between the CBN governor, Godwin Emefiele, and INEC chairman, Mahmoud Yakub. Mahmoud Yakub was concerned about the fact that there might not be cash for logistics for his staff, and so he had to confide in the CBN governor. The CBN governor made a promise that cash would be made available for them to run all of their logistics and all of that. We also had a complaint from the military parastatal talking about the fact that they need cash on hand to pay their, you know, their staff, their military men and all of that. How do you see all of this affecting the elections?
I think your last statement came from the NSA, National Security Advisor. So for me, I feel the NSA should not play to the gallery. He's occupying a lofty position in this country. So I think he knows how to address the scarcity of Naira or the currency as it affects the Nigerians.
You think it's just a lofty statement? It holds no substance?
No. I say he is a senior citizen in this country, and his position, he have the power to address these things without going to the press. But on the other hand, the one that that talked about the INEC chairman going to meet with his CBN governor, I think the CBN governor have already allayed his fears. He even went further to tell Nigerians that when INEC needed forest to purchase or procure beavers machines, that CBN did not was available to offer any forest that was needed, and that even as we speak, not even $1 is being owed any the people that bought the beavers for INEC. So to that extent, I think INEC should not bother much, since CBN have given them the promise that it will not be a challenge. And if you look at the statement that came from the INEC chairman in that conversation, he did said that the accounts they used to operate at the state level and at the federal level, that they are moving to CBN. So meaning they haven't direct dealing with CBN. So if they need cash, I think CBN has capacity to give them whatever they need directly without passing through the rigor of commercial banks.
But you know, we need of course, Nigerians' elections are always militarized. And so if the military is raising concerns that they need this cash to pay their men who would be on ground to, you know, cover the elections, you don't think that's something to look into?
No, I don't think that is the concern of the NSA. You are talking
about, not just the NSA.
Okay, you are the one
also raised the concerns.
I don't think that one is an issue, because I don't think they pay them cash. I mean the military personnel before now.
Well, that's what the report said.
But I don't think because I think the era of even paying is very unlikely that you see an organization that pay their staff with envelope. I think most of them will not. I think they will get their pay through their respective bank accounts.
Well, some of these men,
the
remote areas where they do not have access to banks, the unbanked regions, and so sometimes, according to them, these are confidential issues, and so they didn't reveal so much. But they talked about the fact that they really need cash.
What you have just said now is the general problem that's being faced by all Nigerians. So it's not spectacular with the military, and that is what we have been discussing.
It's more precarious.
That is what we have been discussing, that
because they are the ones who are watching over the people.
And that's what we have been discussing, that there should be a way of vacating that order to pave way for the CBN and the federal government to review the policy further. Don't forget that at the instance of this policy, the amount that was slated for individuals to withdraw and the maximum amount corporate organizations could withdraw, I think it was in the neighborhood of 10,000 and 500,000. But when there was public outcry, it was reviewed to 500,000, no, 5,500,000 as the case may be, if I'm not mistaken. So we have seen CBN is not opposed to reviewing it. And we have seen a situation where the judgment or the order of the Supreme Court is tying the hands of federal government and CBN. So we want that court, personally, I want that court order to be vacated to pave way for the federal government and CBN to review that policy to favor Nigerians and to ease the scarcity.
All right, we'll take a break now. Matthew Luku is still with us to discuss other issues. But that'll be after this break. Stay with us.